Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about Austin Ekeler's contract extension, and as the free agency frenzy begins, we're going to see continuous players getting brand new contracts, potentially faces in new places, but we have Austin Ekeler getting a contract extension. I wanted to talk about the fantasy football implications going into the 2020 fantasy football season and just exactly how valuable re-upping Austin Ekeler is for the Los Angeles Chargers and exactly where I see him in terms of value going into this coming season and how this could potentially hurt Melvin Gordon returning to the Los Angeles Chargers this coming year. So let's get right into that right away. Hey everybody, how's it going? All right, really quickly before we begin, I initially intended to live stream this, talk to you guys about this on my channel. Fortunately, was having some technical issues in terms of internet. That thing over there was bugging out on me. Was getting a lot of frame lag, and it wasn't a great experience, right? The frame was going and it was freezing up, but then the auto was completely perfectly synced. It was a mess, and then eventually my internet went out. But hey, I wanted to go ahead and record this regardless, just to kind of give you guys my thought process on this entire situation. So going into the 2020 season, there's one more thing that I got to mention, right? We're in 2020. A lot of people are hearing all this news of the coronavirus. Hopefully everybody just stays healthy, stay safe. That is all. All right. A lot of sporting events, they're shutting down for a little bit. Maybe we could talk fantasy. I'll be on 1 p.m. PST tomorrow to live stream. Hopefully my internet, I'm going to pray for it, is able to run properly. But either way, let's go ahead and let's talk about Austin Ekeler right off the bat. The thing that I wanted to mention about Austin Ekeler is I really do think this is a fantastic signing. This is a player that is absolutely incredible and an extremely valuable piece to this offense, and he proved exactly that just this last season. Now, a couple stats that I wanted to go over. From weeks 1 through 4 of last season, when Melvin Gordon was having his holdout, Austin Ekeler was an absolute monster. He was a part of that top tier running back. And for those of you who drafted him, whether you handcuffed him with Melvin Gordon, you were absolutely reaping the rewards. He was averaging 23.75 fantasy points per game in that 4-game stretch without Melvin Gordon. That absolutely has to do with the rushing attempts that he was getting and obviously the receptions that he continuously gets in a half PPR setting, but also, red zone rushing attempts play a huge part in terms of this offense. This is an offense Los Angeles Chargers have been able to continuously score on a consistent basis. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about those stats in a little bit, but things that I wanted to continue to go over. In those 4 games, again, 23.75, 95 total fantasy points. He played 70% of these offensive snaps in that 4-game stretch. Now, as soon as Melvin Gordon came back, he left the hiatus of trying to hold out for a contract because obviously Austin Ekeler was balling out, and he was pretty much proving to everyone, and especially the Chargers organization, that maybe Melvin Gordon isn't as valuable as he may seem to be. From weeks 15 through 17, Melvin Gordon came back. He reestablished himself, and he was a pretty good running back. He played 54% of the snaps. He averaged 13.31 fantasy points per game. He was able to get a total of 9 touchdowns in 2019. That's a great sign for Melvin Gordon. But the issue remains, where exactly did Austin Ekeler kind of fit in there? Going from 70% of the offensive snaps, he dipped down to 51%, 51.94, so almost 52. His average fantasy points per game went from 23.75, practically 24, to 14 points. Now, even though that is a significant 10-point drop practically, I still don't think it's as horrifying as a lot of people think, because when we look at the entire production of Austin Ekeler's year, he had an incredible season. He was the number 6 overall back, and no one had him there because no one anticipated him not only to produce as well as he did by himself, but to completely go off in the way that he did outside of those first 4 games, even with Melvin Gordon in the backfield, splitting snaps with him 50-50. That being said, this is a guy that in 10 games had 5+ receptions in a PPR, half PPR, fantastic. On top of that, 0 drop passes on the season. He's one of 5 running backs just this past season to surpass the 1,500 total yard mark. On top of it, get 10+ touchdowns last season. And on a per touch basis, he averaged 1.17 fantasy points per touch. If that's not enough, just to explain to you how good Austin Ekeler was in 2019, then I don't know what else I could potentially do. The guy was an absolute phenom, 92 total receptions, 8th most amongst all running backs in NFL history, 10-yard per reception average, 900 receiving yards. Incredible season overall. Now, the question remains, where do we go from here now that Austin Ekeler and potentially Melvin Gordon is out? Now, I want to talk about, in terms of the entire big picture. If in fact we see Melvin Gordon disappear, what would be the cause? Mainly, it's going to be the fact that he's got a lot of injury history, which we'll go over in a little bit, and the fact that they can't afford him. Now, the thing that I wanted to go ahead and let's talk about affording running backs. As of this moment in time, Austin Ekeler signed a 4-year, $24.5 million contract, getting himself $50 million guaranteed, which is absolutely fantastic. But the annual contract will average around $6 million a year with incentives. As of right now, going into the 2020 season, obviously there are other running backs like Gordon, like Derrick Henry that need to be re-signed. Carlos Hyde will be a free agent. There are other guys out there. But as of this moment in time, this contract currently makes Austin Ekeler the 10th highest paid running back in the National Football League at this moment in time, just above Duke Johnson for the Texans. Again, the Texans spending a lot of money at the running back position, you see there. But Lamar Miller's coming off a tear in ACL. We'll see where he goes. Regardless, just to kind of give you some perspective, just how much money they're guaranteed or, kind of putting into Austin Ekeler. If you were to go ahead and give a guy like Melvin Gordon a deal, you're probably going to have to pay him more than Austin Ekeler. And that's going to probably leave you spending $15+ million a year just at 2 running backs. I don't think an NFL team wants to go ahead and do that. Obviously, unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys, the Rams, and the Jets are kind of stuck paying running backs nearly that much. But in this current landscape of the National Football League, when we look at some of these other running backs down here, it's a lot smarter to maybe draft a rookie running back and probably just let them with a smaller contract contribute as much as they can. And then if in fact they deliver on that promise, be a monster. But again, this is some of the pricing that I wanted to go over. Now that we've gone over pricing, obviously there is a draft this coming April that will determine a lot. Maybe they go ahead and they draft a running back. Maybe they go into the free agency frenzy and they go get a guy like Jordan Howard and they add him to complement a little bit of Austin Ekeler's play. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. All I can tell you right now is what Austin Ekeler will look like in 2020 to an extent because of what he could potentially be walking into. There's a lot that he could inherit. We saw a lot of that in the first 4 weeks of the 2019 season, but to kind of give you more of a idea of what exactly he could potentially walk into. In 2016, Melvin Gordon had 295 total touches, receiving and rushing total combined. In 2017, a year that he was fully healthy, played all 16 games, he had 342 total touches. The following year, 2018, dealt with injuries, but 225 touches. And this past year, in 12 games, 204 touches, rushing, receiving combined. That's a lot of touches on the table, certainly. I know Austin Ekeler's only been there for the last 3 years, but this is a extremely, extremely important time to kind of think, maybe there's a potential that we get Austin Ekeler in this backfield touching the ball 250 plus times. Now, I know a lot of people may be thinking his stature, his height, his weight, it's probably not built for the NFL. But when I look at a guy like Austin Ekeler and I look at a guy like Christian McCaffrey, 5'11", 205. Austin Ekeler, 5'9", 200. Honestly, they have the exact same 40 time, 4.43. But regardless, we'll talk about comparisons in a little bit. Other things that Austin Ekeler will be, gaining. When we talk about his rushing touchdowns that he had in the first 4 weeks, he had 3 rushing touchdowns in the first 4 weeks of the season. Outside of those first 4 weeks, as soon as Melvin Gordon came back, didn't get a single one. Why? Because Melvin Gordon became the goal line back. But we saw Austin Ekeler absolutely become a goal line back, and his 3 touchdowns came up against 3 of the first 4 teams. So when he's given the opportunity to run the ball on the goal line, he delivers. On top of that, when we're talking about touchdowns, Melvin Gordon in the last 4 seasons has had double-digit touchdowns on average. 12 in 2016, 12 in 2016 and 17, 14 in 2018, and 9 just this past season. That's a lot of fantasy value available to a potential running back, and I think Austin Ekeler can deliver on that. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Andrew, You're throwing out a lot of stats. Where exactly is Austin Ekeler currently valued? I was doing a couple mock drafts, and he's kind of in that round 2, round 3 kind of range. If, in fact, we don't see anybody else join this backfield and we have Justin Jackson versus Austin Ekeler, you bet your bottom dollar Austin Ekeler is a second-round pick every day of the week. This is a guy, again, averaging almost 24 fantasy points and half PPR by himself, and even splitting some touches with a guy like Justin Jackson that we saw last year when both of them were on the field together as that 1-2 tandem from weeks 1 through 3, because obviously Justin Jackson eventually got hurt in week 4. The touches were pretty consistent on a weekly basis. Austin Ekeler went from 18, 23 to 16, and Justin Jackson went from 7, 8 to 9 touches on those first 3-week basis. And yes, Justin Jackson played well, but again, Austin Ekeler continued to dominate because he is the more talented back and a guy that they absolutely trust more than, a guy like Justin Jackson, who's pretty inexperienced. But overall, going into the season, where do I kind of see the Chargers? Where do I see Austin Ekeler? What are my final thoughts? Final thoughts, number one, I like the already off-season work that they're doing. They traded Russell Okung, who missed majority of the season last year, for Try Turner, a perennial Pro Bowl guard from the Carolina Panthers. This is a guy that has only been in the league for 5-6 years now. He is a younger offensive lineman, and he has a bright future ahead of him still. Again, they're going to have to reassure this offensive line. According to Pro Football Focus, last season, this was the 29th ranked offensive line. They gave up so many pressures at the left tackle and right tackle position. They gave up the second most pressures in the National Football League last year, and that did not help Phillip Rivers. Now, speaking of Phillip Rivers, after you improve your offensive line, you have to replace the quarterback. You don't have Phillip Rivers anymore. Where are they going to go? Are they going to potentially get into the Brady raffle and put their those balls into the thing and spin it and hope Brady chooses the Los Angeles Chargers? That's potentially a thing. Or maybe they go and they draft a quarterback. Maybe they go and they sign another quarterback, trade for a quarterback. There are so many possibilities, but the question will remain, is the quarterback that they draft going to feed Austin Ekeler the way that Phillip Rivers has done on a yearly basis? Now, the Chargers offense in the last 4 seasons has consistently been feeding the running back position. In fact, the leading receiver in terms of total receptions in the last 3 seasons has always been a running back. The second leading receiver of this offense has always been a running back, because Keenan Allen obviously leads the team in receptions, but just this past season, Austin Ekeler was second in receptions, Melvin Gordon the 2 years prior to that. So feeding the running back position out of the backfield has always been an important thing for this offense. Let's say you get a Brady. We've seen him do it with James White in the past. Feed the running back position no matter where they line up. Again, Austin Ekeler doesn't have to line up out of the backfield. We saw him even last year line up out wide, go up against cornerbacks, hit him with the hitch and go, score touchdowns, and be an extremely dynamic running back. And that's exactly why they signed him, because you never know exactly what he's going to do. Even if he's in the backfield, you may anticipate him to go out for a pass. Boom, it's a draw play. This guy's gashing you for yards. Very versatile and honestly an exciting player to watch. Now, I did mention a little bit earlier, a little bit of the comparisons. Prior to going into, I think, a couple years back, where we saw Jonathan Stewart and we saw Christian McCaffrey split snaps, Christian McCaffrey's rookie year. And we thought to ourselves, going into his sophomore season, are they going to give him the full workload? Is he capable of that? And we thought, oh, here comes C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson is going to take over the workload while Jonathan Stewart goes over to the New York Giants and tries to mentor Saquon. And all of a sudden, we have here Christian McCaffrey playing C.J. Anderson out of a job completely. Now, is there a possibility we have a Austin Ekeler 3-down back situation in which he's absolutely dominating, touching the ball like he did last season, the first 3 games, 18 plus times a game? There is always a possibility of that. I understand he's a smaller stature back, but I truly do think that playing 70% of the offensive snaps, he can technically he could be a 3-down back on a consistent basis, come out here and there on some up the middle plunges. That's why you go sign him, a cheaper running back, maybe draft a rookie that is a downhill runner, 3 yards in a cloud of smoke kind of guy. Overall, again, like I was mentioning earlier, his value in fantasy, pretty expensive. second round. But again, if he's by himself in this situation, I want a piece of that. As of right now, I think the earliest I saw him was about 2-4, second round, fourth pick. And he's being paired a lot with Aaron Jones, which honestly doesn't seem bad, right? So a team in the first round has the 8th pick. They pick Aaron Jones, a guy that's averaging 18, last season, 18.11 half PPR fantasy points. A pretty good grab right there. And then you go into the second round, and instead of grabbing one of these wide receivers that are left, maybe like a Godwin or a Julio, and worrying about injuries or anything of that sort, who's going to be the Tampa Bay quarterback, we look at Austin Ekeler and we think to ourselves, this is a guy that by himself was averaging 24 points, even with another running back out of the backfield who was dominating the goal line touches and all those touchdowns. He still averaged 14 fantasy points in half PPR. If you get to uptick 17 points, potentially, Austin Ekeler can be an incredible fantasy football option this year, and I cannot wait to see it. That's pretty much all I wanted to go over, kind of give you guys my thought process. Anyway, like I mentioned earlier, tomorrow, 1 p.m. PST, I will be talking fantasy football, whatever you guys want to talk about. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be fantasy related. But now that there's not too many sports out there, we got to keep ourselves a little bit entertained, I guess. XFL is gone, canceled. March Madness will be gone. Just stay healthy, guys. That's all I want you guys to do. And also, get ready for fantasy because it's just around the corner and I'm getting excited. So, thank you everybody for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.